Well, ladies and gentlemen, let's get started. Today, we're going to be going over a very special fight card. We got UFC 258 this Saturday. Right now, I'm joined by my very good friend, possibly brother from another mother, Eric Larochelle.
What's up, guys?
Yeah, so let's just get into this fight card. Why don't we? We got, I think, 12 fights, I believe, 3 on the early prelims, 4 or 5 on the prelims, and then 5 on the main card with a culmination bout of the welterweight championship between Kamaru Usman and Gilbert Burns. Let's just start out with the first fight. We got Jillian Savage Robertson versus Miranda Maverick in the women's flyweight division. Jillian is plus 115. Miranda is minus 143. Thoughts?
See, on this one, based on the spread, I like Miranda Maverick in this. She's what, a tad younger. Her record's a tad better, and her last 5 fights have been pretty impressive. I saw the one on the Khabib and Gaethje card versus Jojua, that TKO. And although Robertson, she's been doing hit or miss. She's 3 out of her last 5. Lost to Macy Barber and Miss Santos, but she did beat Botello back in October. I see Maverick taking this one. I don't know how you feel.
I yeah, I agree. I mean, Robertson's 9-5 overall. She's been competing in the UFC since 2017. Her strength is definitely on the ground. She's a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and like you said, I think Miranda Maverick gets this done. That was a doctor stoppage on the Khabib Gaethje card. She's one of the most highly touted prospects coming out of this 125 division. Her record's 10-2. One of those losses she had against Deanna Bennett, and she did avenge that loss with a rear naked choke win about 3 months after that. And then she was the number 1 contender in Invicta before she got the call up to the UFC. So my question for you is, this is how I see it. Miranda Maverick's a Muay Thai fighter, and Robertson's a straight black belt fighter with no strength besides her ground game. How do you see this playing out if it goes to the ground?
Shoot. I agree that Robertson's grappling game might be superior, but at the same time, the fights we have seen Maverick in have not. A lot of them haven't got to the ground. She's good at pushing the pace. She's got good inside strikes with her elbows, and the motor that I've seen out of her is pretty impressive too. That's the reason I'm taking Maverick in this one.
Yeah, I think to open it up, ladies and gentlemen, I think this is a pretty concise win. I'd put your money on Miranda Maverick. A lot of people that are actually way more up in the MMA community, journalist wise, have said she's one of the most highly touted prospects coming out of this division. And the only way I see Robertson getting this done is somehow if she ends up on her back and scrambles in some way and gets like an arm bar or a guillotine. But there's no point putting your money on someone if their only chance of winning is off their back. That's stupid, especially with Miranda being a Muay Thai fighter. You know, she's going to have that good ground defense, and then she's going to throw those elbows and knees. All right, so the next fight we got, which many people might not know about. Let's put our tinfoil hats on. I'm saying this might be one of the best fights we see on the early card. We got Gabriel Gifted Green versus Philip the Fresh Prince Rowe at welterweight. Green minus 130, Rowe plus 105. Green's 9-3, Rowe's 7-2, and Lara. This is the thought I want to get you on. Rowe has an 80-inch reach, and we're talking the welterweight division. Talk me through what that means for him.
That was one of my first points I was going to make on this. When you got guys, even the king of welterweight division back in the day was Georges St. Pierre, for the last 10 or so years in the 2000s to early 2010s. And you got this guy who is 6'3", and GSP was 5'10", I believe, with a 74-inch reach. And he was so good at utilizing his jab and keeping the distance on guys like that. I haven't seen much from this Phil Rowe guy, but if he has any bit of talent, and I can see he's 4-0 in the submission category as well. He's got a couple by guillotine, so he knows how to use his reach on the ground. But his other 2 of the past 5 wins have been KO or TKO. So with the 6'3" to 5'10" and that 80-inch reach, that's going to be pretty tough for Gabe Green to get inside on this. And you were saying Gabe Green was the favorite in this one?
Yeah, Gabe Green is minus 130 and Phil Rose plus 105, so a slight favorite.
If I was anyone betting on this, even in the early prelims, I would take Phil Rowe on this. Those you can't beat the odds with that reach and that height. And I don't think Gabe Green's that type of elite, inside wrestler to get it to the ground or to get inside with the strikes. That's a little I think he's overmatched in this regard.
Yeah, I agree with you with the whole reach thing with Philip Rowe. I mean, we're talking 80 inches. Like the only people that come around that have it are like John Jones, and that's 2 weight classes above. You're talking 170, and this guy's 6'3", 80-inch reach. He does have a really good high kick and a power left. He is a southpaw fighter. But the thing is, he did start off his career. Here's a fun fact for you, which I'll get your thoughts on this. He did start his career off 0-2. And then he's won his rest, but he in the beginning, like the 3 wins he got were against a fighter that was 0-1, 1-2, and 1-1. And all of those came by like a first or second round knockouts. Whereas Gabe Green, my bad, his big thing is he hasn't fought in 2 years. So walk me through how that could be potentially with the ring rust and all.
Well, ring rust is a heavy factor in this. I mean, take a look at a guy. Shoot, the most prime and recent example. Look what happened to McGregor. And I'm not saying that although he was in boxing, his head was more around the spotlight, in the fame and the investments and everything else and the money. That's why he went to boxing. But he comes back and he faces no guy off the couch, and Dustin Poirier, who in that 7-year span had gone on a 9-2 run. And he runs into a brick wall. He outgasses himself early, and I think that was his big fall. It's all the anxiety I think gets to the guys beforehand, and 2 years is a long time to be out of the octagon. So I think that plays a major factor in this fight as well.
Yeah, and that fight 2 years ago, he lost to Daniel Rodriguez, who was 12-1 at the time. So he wasn't fighting any slouches by no means, which Philip Rowe has. So I think the game plan here is, like you said earlier, which I think Gabe Green needs to get on the inside, because Philip Rowe is one of those fighters with that 80-inch reach. He's just going to stay on the outside and circle and throw that target finder before he throws that straight shot. And like you said, Gabe Green has to have that inside wrestling or those inside power shots, which I don't think he has. And I'm really surprised that they gave Gabe Green the being the favorite in this.
Yeah, couldn't agree more with that one.
So you're going with Philip Rowe?
I'm taking Rowe in that one. Yeah.
I'm going with Philip Rowe as well. I think, ladies and gentlemen, this is going to be one of those fights that you're going to want to watch, because neither of these fighters you probably really know much about, but I think the Fresh Prince gets it done. Now let's move on to the featured early prelim. Ricky Simone versus Brian Boom Kelleher. This is going to be in the featherweight division. Ricky Simone is the favorite at minus 286. Kelleher coming in at plus 220 underdog. Ricky Simone has a 17-3 record. Kelleher with 22 wins, 11 losses.
Yeah, I'm hitting Ricky Simone on this one. Even based on his last 5 fights, I'm starting to recognize some of these names that are big. He lost to, Uriah Faber, Rob Font, but he comes back and beats Ray Borg early May last year. And Ray Borg, a guy who fought for the title not too long ago against Demetrius Johnson. So his competition is very stiff as of late. I mean, this is a classic striker jiu-jitsu type of match. And Brian Kelleher, 22-11. I'm not really biting on that. I think Ricky Simone puts the pressure on early, and he's going to finish them with strikes.
Yeah, so here's where we might differ, because I like Ricky Simone as well in this fight. I think he's one of the best up-and-coming prospects. But if you were looking for an underdog, a dog that might bite, it's Kelleher. I think Dana and them did a great job with the matchmaking here, because Ricky Simone, we know what he's going to give us. He's a wrestler. He's going to go for the double leg every time, and he's going to try to get you on your back, and then he's going to wet blanket you and throw the ground and pound. Now, Laura, listen to this. What is Brian Kelleher's favorite submission? The guillotine. He has an excellent guillotine, and in his not his last fight, 2 fights ago, Ray Rodriguez, both of them landed each one punch before Rodriguez shot for the takedown, and Kelleher got him in a guillotine, and it ended within like 38 seconds of the fight.
Yeah, no, I can see both ways, especially on the, that's the easiest entrance to a guillotine is that double leg takedown. But out of the 3 losses that Simone has in 17 wins, it's been 1 loss by submission. And he's finished 2 guys with subs on his own, one in his last fight against Pirello. So I'm not counting him out. I think he's trained for this. And Kelleher's shown that guillotine a couple times. So, I mean, I hear your difference, but I still think Ricky takes this one.
Yeah, I really don't see. Again, this is like the first fight of the night with Robertson and Miranda. You really don't want to put your money on someone whose only shot of winning is off their back, off a takedown. That's just plain stupid, especially when you get a guy who's Ricky Simone, who literally, I can't say double leg enough. That's literally what he's going to do. He's going to come out there, he's going to throw 1-2, and then he's going to immediately shoot on you. So I think we've stuck together on all these fights, and I'm going to keep sticking with you on this. If you want to sprinkle the dog on this one, I would. Brian Kelleher's only chance really is if Ricky gets sloppy and somehow gets caught in a guillotine or some crazy back submission, but I don't think Kelleher can do that.
Yeah, I feel like that's a long shot in a 3-round fight like this.
All right. Right through the early prelims, ladies and gentlemen. Now let's get to the prelims of UFC 258. We're going to start off with Andre Mr. Highlight Ewell versus Chris El Guapo Gutierrez. This is at a catch weight of 140. Ewell's the underdog at plus 155. Gutierrez is minus 200. Ewell is 17-6, while Gutierrez is 15-3-1.
I think this is one of those fights, at a catch weight like 140. Both of these guys, Ewell's 33 and Gutierrez is 29, both maybe entering their prime or kind of see what that is. This could be that crossroads fight for both of them. I don't really have a favorite in this one. I think if I had to pick one, I'd go Gutierrez, but man, this is pretty tough. This is one of those razor thins. I don't really have a definitive guy I'm rolling with on this one.
Yeah, so Andre Ewell was supposed to fight Cody Stamen last week, but due to Cody Stamen contracting COVID, it had to be canceled. Cody Stamen is a wrestler, plain and simple. I mean, Cody Stamen does not throw any punches. He's literally in there to take you down and just lay on you. So that's who Andre Ewell was training for. And that's even more interesting because Andre Ewell loves to just stand and bang at range. He's going to circle. He's going to throw that rangefinder, and then he's going to work those combinations. And he was training for a wrestler. Now, here's what I want to get your opinion on. Chris Gutierrez is a man behind leg kicks. 54% of his significant strikes are leg kicks. He has a TKO victory with leg kicks. So how could you see this playing out if Andre Ewell is going to stand out at range and try to find, while Chris Gutierrez at long range, that's perfect calf kick time.
That's right. And his calf kicks will have to play a major factor into this. Even though Gutierrez is an inch on Andre Ewell, Ewell possesses an 8-inch reach advantage, which is absurd of having 75 for a catchweight guy at 140. I think Ewell, if Gutierrez doesn't land those outside leg kicks, or when he's throwing them, he's going to get caught with those rangy, findy punches that you were talking about earlier. So that's, and again, he's training for a completely different guy from Stamen to Gutierrez. That's a lot of adjustment in a short amount of time.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm thinking. It's so hard to pick who's going to win because, like you said, this could go, especially I love how you brought up the reach. Like, if he can't get past the reach, he's not going to land leg kicks, and then he's fucked. But if he does get past the leg kicks, I haven't really seen Andre Ewell do that well on the inside. This man does not like being on the ground or in close coordinates. I think I'm going to go with, it's just, I guess I'm going to roll with the favorite here with Gutierrez. I think just the leg kick percentage he throws and the accuracy he has, and then Andre Ewell training for a completely different fight, I think that might have an impact on him. What do you think?
It's like I said, it's a tough adjustment, but I still think Gutierrez takes this one. That's especially at a catch weight. Both these guys seem to be on short notice, and sometimes it goes to the guy who's fresh with no anxiety, and he hasn't trained much, and he's got more of a free, open camp. It's less hard sparring, and he can kind of just be himself in that. It's tough.
Yeah, and I mean, also, I forgot to mention, but Andre Ewell, because of the whole COVID thing, he's been quarantined for 10 days in a Las Vegas hotel. So training wise,
He might, yeah. That's a lot. That's a problem a lot of these guys I feel might be facing, still in these upcoming months, like they have all of 2020.
So yeah, we're gonna go with Gutierrez on this one. We'll just recap. We got Miranda Maverick, the Fresh Prince Rowe, Ricky Simone, and then Chris El Guapo Gutierrez. Next up, we got a women's strawweight match: Polyana Viana versus Mallory Martin. Viana coming in at the underdog plus 135. Mallory Martin minus 167. Viana's 11-4. Mallory Martin's 7-3.
7-3. Yeah, I'm going with Viana on this one. Even though at 11-4, it seems like she's got experience in that regard. She's 7-1 in submissions. Probably one of those give or take black belts off the streets, that are raised in Brazil, but they're lethal as all can be. And I haven't seen enough from Mallory Martin to say that she's one to defend those takedowns and keep it on the feet to where she could potentially not be in trouble.
Ooh, I think this is where we might differ because I like Mallory Martin in this one, and I will tell you why. So, like you said, yeah, Polyana Viana, she's a world-class Brazilian jiu-jitsu competitor. Now, the thing that's funny about this, though, is she has terrible takedown defense, and she is fighting a great wrestler who has excellent top pressure in Mallory Martin. But Polyana Viana is very active from her back. She doesn't lay there and try to get the ref to pick her up. She's going to shoot for those takedowns. Now, here's another thing you might not know. Mallory Martin, she trains out of Elevation Fight Team in Denver. That's where Justin Gaethje, Kamaru Usman, Alistair Overeem, Neil Magny, and Corey Sandhagen, who had that impressive flying knee first round knockout last week, they all trained. So with that, Mallory Martin's around some straight killers.
Yeah, I hear you, but who's their top guy, Gaethje, who just got armbarred by your boy over there, Khabib? I mean, it's a if so facto. If Mallory's the one to take Viana down, I think Viana is not going to try to defend it as much. Like you said, she's going to be active off her back, and wrestlers have been known to sometimes be overzealous in that regard, and could be susceptible to those off the back type submissions or sweeps. And then Viana on top and a wrestler on bottom. I don't like those odds for Martin.
Yeah, I think in this one we're gonna get that it's just hard to say, but that stereotypical women's fight. I don't think they're gonna be, because a fight is basically a dance. You have to be able to stand in the right place with each other and bang. I think this is gonna be one of those fights where this is a straight jiu-jitsu versus wrestling match. So I do see not as much unless Mallory just comes out, because Polyana can stand. I will give her that. She does not have that bad of stand-up game. She just does not do well with the takedowns. But I think this fight's going to be Mallory just over and over trying to get that takedown, and then Viana, working the back, seeing what's open.
Yeah, that could be an easily, split decision. One of those, like you said, classic girl fights. You don't really, but it could be one of those barn burners that we just don't see coming. It's tough to tell, in these early prelims type of deal.
Yeah, I agree. So there you go. We both differ on this fight. I'm going to back the favorite in Mallory Martin, and Lauro is going to take the underdog with Polyana Viana. So that fight you might want to pay attention to or avoid. Usually you want to take the fights that Lauro and I agree on. So I would probably stay away from that fight, if anything. Now, next fight. This is a fight I'm really pumped about because this is a guy that is. So we got 13th ranked Bilal. Remember the name Muhammad versus Diego Lima in the welterweight division. Bilal is a minus 335 favorite. Diego Lima is plus 250. We got a 17-3 Bilal versus a 17-7 Diego.
And this is where it starts getting a little bit more exciting, Evan. I like Bilal Muhammad in this. He's one of those.
Love Bilal.
typical Dagestan, Palestine, whatever, Middle East type, killing type of grapplers. But I see he also trains over at Rufus Sport, with the likes of Pat Barry and Anthony Pettis and those guys. And Duke Rufus, who's a hell of a coach, he's starting to get my attention. I think he found a camp that he really enjoys.
Yeah, I can't. First off, Bilal's nickname is Remember the Name, and y'all need to remember the name. I am extremely high on Bilal Muhammad. He's on a 3-fight win streak, and you know exactly what's coming when you face a Bilal Muhammad, and that is a wet blanket. That man is coming for you. He's gonna grab you, and once he gets you, if Douglas Lima or Diego Lima, my bad, lets him get a hold of him, you're fucked. Like Bilal is so good. He got a submission win over Takashi Sato in 2019, and then a unanimous decision versus Lyman Good. In that Lyman Good fight, he went for 8 takedowns, secured 2 of them, got a minute 38 control. What I really noticed in that fight is he's really good at moving side to side and he's good at getting guys to draw into his shot. And then he hits his shot, he goes for the double and he gets it. And then once he gets it, he's on you.
It's that type of natural pressure that guys like Khabib, pretty much pioneered for the sport. And it's funny when you said Douglas Lima, because that's who I thought it was at first. And if that was the case, if somehow UFC got him from Bellator, that would be a completely different fight. This is Douglas is the guy who beat that Michael Venom Page cat not too long ago, who was undefeated forever how long. But this is Diego Lima, guy kind of a journeyman from the Ultimate Fighter days. He has his own 3-fight streak, but his last fight to date was October 5th, 2019. So that's, about a year and a half off. He's not one of those natural type Brazilian born leaders, killers off their back. He's 17-7. He likes to stand and bang. He's got a good frame at 6'2", 170. But the fights I have seen him in, they've been super wishy-washy. And he's not a guy I'm willing to put my money behind, especially running into a guy like Muhammad, who seems to be entering the prime of his career right now.
Yeah, and for those of you that don't know, Douglas Lima is his brother. He's Bellator's welterweight champion, and he's a straight killer. He's one of the best in the world. He could compete. But no, we were talking about his brother. And yeah, like you said, Diego, he only has 50% takedown defense, which is not even close to where you want to be if you're going to fight Bilal, who goes for about, 10 takedowns over 3 rounds. Like he's coming for you. The only thing that is going for Diego that I do like is he has really good leg kicks. So if he can utilize his leg kicks, this could be something like what Gaethje tried to do against Khabib, where he was like 1 to 2 leg shots away from really putting Khabib in pressure. So I think that's what Diego needs to do. He needs to attack that leg and really get him on one foot, because if he doesn't, Bilal's just going to steamroll you.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And just having those leg strikes, is your pivotal point as far as your style. That's not something I'm willing to and throw. Plus, if you don't throw your leg kicks low enough, but Bilal's just going to take them and put you on your back, and that won't take too many for him to figure that out.
Yeah, so both of us really like Bilal Muhammad. We're both really high on his career. Pay attention to that name going in the future in welterweight. He is ranked 13th right now. I think if he gets this win, would you say he deserves a top 10 opponent at that point?
I would say yeah, because that'd be his 4th fight, his 4th win in a row, and especially if it's a dominant performance. You get like a performance of the night, sub of the night, that type of thing. I can definitely see Dana putting him in that top 10 category.
Yeah, I mean, there's nowhere really else to go. Like you said, Diego Lima is a journeyman. So the past few fights that Bilal's had, he's faced basically okay strikers, but terrible grapplers. So he's going to win. You get a guy that's okay grappling. One name that pops out to me. So he's ranked 13th. I'm looking at the rankings right now here. We're going to play a little matchmaking, Laura. I'm going to give you some names. So if he wins this, we got Damian Maia, who's 8, Neil Magny's 9, Vicente Luque's 10, and Jeff Neal's 11. He's 13. Who do you think, stylistically or in your own personal opinion, would you like to see him fight next if he wins this fight?
Before you even put up the numbers, like you said, he hasn't faced many good grapplers. Throw him in there with Damian Maia, and then that'll be the test that he needs to pass.
Wow.
Maia's, on the back end of his career type of deal, but he's still one of the most lethal grapplers in the game today. So if he's as dominant as he says he is, with those takedown percentages, throw him in with Maia. I think that's a good matchup if he beats Diego Lima on Saturday.
Yeah, and Maia being at number 8, I think he holds that spot between you beat Maia, you might get a top 5 opponent at that point.
That's the perfect crossroad fight. I couldn't agree more.
All right. So moving on to the next fight. This fight I'm also so pumped about because I think you'll really like this guy too, Laura. We got Rodolfo, the black belt Hunter Vieira versus Anthony Fluffy Hernandez at the middleweight. Rodolfo's minus 400. Fluffy's plus 300. Rodolfo's undefeated at 7-0. And Anthony Hernandez is 7-2.
All right, boys, anyone betting on this fucking fight, you better hit that minus 400 or whatever based on these first of all, these damn nicknames, the black belt Hunter versus Fluffy. And the second stat I saw on Vieira, this man trains out of Team Nogueira, who are the Nogueira brothers. And if you don't know, they pioneered jiu-jitsu for the UFC right after Royce Gracie. He is the elite of the elite. I'm telling you this. I don't see Hernandez winning this whatsoever. He's 7-0, 6-0 submissions, and he's hitting these submissions early. So even if you're not a ground type fighter fan, he gets to business early, and I'm taking Vieira on this one.
Yeah, I'll just run through his accolades for you. He's a 5-time world champion Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He's a 7-time Abu Dhabi world champion Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He's got 1 KO and 6 submissions in his career. Like you said, his last fight, first round submission by arm triangle choke. This man is a straight murderer when it comes to jiu-jitsu. His name's the Black Belt Hunter. He literally has said how any black belt he will take on, and he does. He's a straight killer. Now, why this is a problem for Anthony Hernandez. Anthony Hernandez is a black belt. He is a wrestler. He is not going to stand there and bang with you. And the only way you're going to beat Vieira is if you can stop his takedowns and stand on the feet, because Vieira is not a good striker. He usually does left jab, right overhand, and then shoots on you. And once you're on the ground, you're fucked. So, yeah.
Yeah, he's one of those guys that reminds me of, I don't know if you used to watch Husamal Paul Harris. He was known for being super dirty. He was in the 185 division, but his submissions were off the charts. He would rip guys' knees in half. And he kind of reminds me of Husamar, just the way he's built. What's he at, 185? I mean, that's a
tank.
That's a tough son of a bitch to go against.
Yeah, for those of you that don't know, I would strongly suggest Googling what Rodolfo Vieira looks like. This man shouldn't be fighting. Middleweight's 185, for those of you who don't know. This man should easily be fighting in the light heavyweight at 205. This man is huge. So, yeah, getting back to the point, I think just like the last one with Bilal, I think Larochelle and I are pretty clear on who we want. I give Anthony Hernandez, the only chance he has is if somehow within the first 15 seconds before Vieira takes him down, which he is going to take him down, is somehow land a shot and knock him out, because you're not going to submit Vieira. Your only chance is to stand and bang with him. And Anthony Hernandez does not stand and bang. He wants to go to the ground, which is the exact opposite of what you want to do. So, yeah, we got that. That wraps up our prelims, ladies and gentlemen. So now let's get to the main card. This fight will probably be very touching for Larochelle and I, because these are two veterans. We got Jim A10 Miller versus Bobby King Green at the lightweight. Jim Miller's plus 215 underdog. Bobby Green is a minus 278 favorite. Jim Miller with a 32-15 record. Bobby Green a 27-11-1 record. Wow.
Did that Maki Patolo and Julian Marquez fight get canceled? Because what I'm seeing, that was the first of the pay-per-view.
Oh, it is? I had that one next.
Okay. Yeah, we can go to Jim and Bobby. Jim at plus 220, Bobby minus 270. I still like Jim in this one. That's a little big of a reach for me. And I've seen Bobby in some wars. I think Jim's veteran, demeanor might pull him through this one. Let me get your thoughts, first of all.
Yeah, so let's just start off with Bobby Green. He beats Trinaldo at the end of 2019. Then comes into 2020, he beats Guida, who won last week in that epic veteran fight. And then he beats Venata. Then he suffers a really controversial loss to Thiago Moises, where he won the significant strikes in all the rounds and still lost. So you could almost say he was 3-0 in 2020. And I think it would be a different scene for him because now he's fighting the veteran Jim Miller. And like you said, Jim Miller, always a good fight when you see him. He is just the classic MMA fighter. He's going to come at you. He's going to throw his combinations, and then he's going to try to get you on the ground. The thing I like about Bobby Green is he's got 75% takedown defense. So he's really good at stopping those takedowns. Jim Miller coming in at 56% of his wins by submission, and he loves the calf kick.
He does, yeah. And I'll give it to Bobby too. His significant striking accuracy is 51.21. You know, his lands per minute has almost doubled Jim Miller's. That's tough. Although having a 2-inch height advantage, they do possess the same reach, which I'll give Jim, credit in that. He's not just going to stand there and take those punches. He's got a good, striking avoidance key, and his submission average is almost at a 2 with the takedown average close to 45%. That might be the X factor for Jim. I don't know if he's going to want to stand and bang with Bobby that long based off those numbers, but if he can get it to the ground, I think he possesses a significant advantage.
Yeah, like you said. So his Jim Miller significant strike stands around 2.8. Bobby's at 5.15. So Bobby puts out about double the amount of significant strikes per minute than Jim does. So it's this one. So I want to lean to Jim Miller just because he's such a veteran, classy dude. But Bobby with that 75% takedown defense, and he's got pretty good boxing on the feet. I think if he stops Jim Miller's takedowns and controls the range to limit Jim Miller's calf kicks, then I think Bobby Green has a really good chance of winning this fight. I'm leaning to Bobby Green just because of that. I think also just he beat Trinata, then he beat Guida, then he beat Venata, and then so he's 3-1 in his last 4 fights. Some people say 4-0 basically because that Thiago Moises was very controversial decision. I think it was a split decision, honestly, too. But with that, I think Bobby is just showing this late surgence in his career. I think he beats Jim Miller in this one.
Okay, I'm gonna take Jim on this. I wouldn't put the spread as big as minus 270. That's why I'm not as comfortable. If it was like a minus 150 plus 170 type deal, but I'd hit Jim Miller on this.
All right, there you go, ladies and gentlemen. Jim Miller as a dog, if you want to sprinkle that. This fight's going to be close. I do agree with Larochelle. I think it is disrespectful that Bobby Green's almost a 3-1 favorite in this. Jim Miller's no slouch. But there we go. So the next one we got in the middleweight division, we got Maki Coconut Bombs Patolo versus Julian the Cuban Missile Crisis Marquez. Maki's the underdog at plus 140. Marquez being the favorite at minus 177. Maki is 13-7, while Marquez is 7-2.
I like Marquez here at 7-2. He's 4-5 out of his last 5s, even though he lost his last one by a split decision. I've seen him fight. He's really tough. He's got a good jiu-jitsu base, but he puts out some good strikes too. And he's just a tough son of a bitch. He's got a strong chin. He's 7-2. That's a solid record. I'd take that over 13-7 any day.
Okay, yeah. So let me just let me give you some quick facts about this. The big question coming in is, and let's get your thoughts on this. Marquez has not fought since July 2018, where he lost and suffered a pretty gruesome knee injury.
Yeah, and I mean I think that's a difference between ring rust and going out with an injury, having the time, and if he spent it well, rehabilitating himself, doing it the slow, correct way, while still being able to work on your technique and conditioning. And if this is the return he's trying to make, I think you give that time period, he should be back to full strength. And I don't see this as the same as being a guy who just, took a loss and left for 2 years. I think he's highly motivated to get back after that injury.
Yeah, so I think that this one, ladies and gentlemen, this one's going to be fireworks for you. Let's just give you this stat. Maki has won 54% of his fights by KO. Marquez has won 86% of his fights by KO. And Marquez's stats, 3.48 significant strikes landed per minute versus 4.41 significant strikes absorbed. So we're talking about a guy who's going to dish it out, but also he's not really going to defend himself. He's going to leave himself open for those counters. Now, Maki, they're fighting in the middleweight division. He's only 5'10", but he has really good power, but he is really tiny for this weight division.
Yeah, compared to a 6'2" Julian Marquez, who just seems to be a man amongst boys. What was the spread again on these two?
We got Maki's the underdog at plus 140, Marquez minus 177.
I'd hit the minus 177 on this. What's your opinion?
Yeah, see, it's the real question, I think, and you're probably going to agree with me, is he hasn't fought since 2018, coming off an injury. And the last one I can think of who did something similar is Thiago Santos, lost to John Jones tore his knee up, didn't fight for a while. And then you're going to have to remind me who he fought, but I think it was Overeem, right? Or am I wrong?
No, Overeem would have been in the heavyweight division. He was fighting John Jones at the light heavyweight.
Glover Teixeira. That's what it was, because it was for who was going to fight Jan. Yeah, so that's something similar. We saw Thiago Santos take about the same length, a year and a half off, comes in against Glover Teixeira, a veteran, and Thiago Santos looked terrible. Like, Glover took him down and basically just kept him on the ground the whole fight. So,
yeah, I think Glover is a much more seasoned veteran and a perennial top 10 guy. I don't know enough about this Maki guy to say I think he runs into a brick wall as far as Julian coming back or whatever.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with Larochelle on this one. I'm going to take Marquez just because I think he's a much better fighter. Maki is coming off back-to-back losses as well, and both those losses were honestly pretty terrible losses for him. He did not look good at any of them. So this could be a big fight for Maki, depending on how he does. He might get cut from the UFC, and I know a bunch of people are really high on Marquez coming back. So yeah, I'm going to go with Marquez. The other thing I would say is I expect this fight to be a finish.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah, I just don't see this fight going to the judges. I mean, both these guys are just straight power punchers. They're not going to stick and move. They're going to sit there and sit on their punches. So expect this one to end early. All right, next we got 3 fights left. And this fight, I'm really interested to get your thoughts on, because we got number 9, Kelvin Gastelum versus 15, Ian the Hurricane Heinisch in the middleweight. Gastelum coming in at a minus 220 favorite versus a plus 175 underdog in Heinisch. Kelvin Gastelum is 16-6. Ian Heinisch is 14-3.
Yeah, I'm taking the guy I've known and watched grow up in the octagon, basically, is Kelvin Gastelum. And although he's 2-3 out of his last 5, meaning he's lost 3 in a row. I mean, look at these losses. Israel Adesanya, unanimous decision. Darren Till, split decision. And Jack Hermanson, who was riding a significant fight streak for wins, a loss by a sub, which he got caught, I think, in a heel hook early on. I think Gastelum comes back recharged, rejuvenated, and I don't think Ian Heinisch really knows what he's getting into as far as competition with Kelvin.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to get your thoughts on, because a lot of people are saying now that Gastelum is at a crossroads in his career. And this is incredible too, because we're talking about the Gastelum who 3 fights ago fought Adesanya in one of the best fights ever in the UFC. He went 5 rounds. Like, all right, for the middleweight division, Gastelum's short and a chunky dude, but god damn, he has cardio. He went 5 rounds with Israel Adesanya, and he put some licks on him too. Now, he loses to Israel Adesanya. Adesanya is on a completely different level. I know that. Then he fights Darren Till. Doesn't look that good. And then the big thing is the Hermanson lost, where he looked absolutely terrible. He lost by a first-round submission heel hook, if that just goes to show you anything. So my question to you is, where do you think Gastelum's mind's at right now, coming off 3 losses, especially a first-round heel hook loss? I mean, That's a bad way to lose, an immediate heel hook.
It's a bad way to lose, but if you're looking at Hermansson's side, if you're looking for that type of submission, and I can speak from experience, the best time to hit those knee bars and leg locks and heel hooks are against guys in the beginning where they're not as sweaty and slick. And I mean, Hermansson his technique was superior, and Gastelum was doing the right things, spinning over, pressing down on Hermansson's knee to push out. He just got stuck. And yeah, this is that crossroad fight for Gastelum. You know, the old saying in the UFC was you lose 3 and you're out. It's like 3 strikes. Dana White used to have that rule, and you'd be fired. He'd let you go. But I think he saw something in Gastelum. He's giving him another chance. And like you said, he is a tough son of a bitch. Short, kind of chunky looking guy. But even against a guy like Adesanya, who's 6'3", one of the most lanky motherfuckers, he got inside and made it an absolute war. So we've seen, even in that loss to Adesanya, the best of him. And, you know, prior to that, he had a split decision win with Jacare Souza, who was a complete animal back then in 2018. And then a KO TKO win against Bisping before that. And Bisping had just lost the belt. So he has done nothing but fight the top of the top, you know, in competition. And I don't see Heinisch even close to the top 10 yet. So I think Gastelum wins this one.
Yeah, I think this is a really good fight for Gastelum. I'll just give you the quick rundown on. So Ian's coming off a first round KO over Mearshart. Mearshart's the fucker that Hamzat knocked out with that one punch in like 5 seconds. So that gives you just an idea of the level of talent that Ian's faced. Ian's a straight wrestler. He's going to come at you and try to ground and pound you. But then this is where I want to get your opinion, because this is where I really like Gastelum. Ian has not shown he has a gas tank yet. He's shown he can wear out. So especially if Gastelum can stuff those takedowns and Ian runs out of gas, because we all know Gastelum's not running out of gas. This is a 3-round fight too. I mean, he can go 5 rounds. He's not worried about that. If we see Ian lose his gas tank, I think this is just Gastelum's going to pick him apart.
Yeah, and in the later rounds, he's shown to turn into, you know, one of those volume strikers. It reminds me of how the Diaz brothers fight, except grappling wise, Gastelum's completely different. He's no slouch on the ground either, or a bad wrestler in his own regard. Even if he gets taken down, I think he's pretty active and he's going to be able to get back up. And like you said, just wear this Heinisch guy out. Because even in that 5-round fight against Adesanya, he showed no signs of slowing down. And cardio plays, as we all know, into a huge factor, you know, in these main event card fights.
Exactly. So I think both of us like Gastelum, but just for the fun of it, let's play matchmaker. Let's say Ian gets this win. He has a ranking. He's 15th. He gets this win over a number 9 Gastelum. Who would you like to see him fight? I'll read off some potentials. We got Derek Brunson 7, Uriah Hall 8, Kevin Holland 10, Chris Weidman 11, Edmund Shabazian 12.
Maybe a Chris Weidman comeback, depending on how he wins this fight. But you mentioned Derek Brunson, and he already lost to Derek Brunson in a unanimous decision back in 2019.
Okay.
So unless you want to see a rematch there, I don't even remember
Absolutely
that fight.
not.
So I can't imagine it was any good. I like maybe a Weidman. What'd you say Weidman was at?
11.
11. I think that it depends on how he wins this fight. If it's dominant against Gastelum and it's like a first round knockout submission, which I highly fucking doubt, then yeah, maybe someone a little higher. But I think if it's like a split unanimous, if playing fucking devil's advocate, he wins this fight, because I don't think he's going to. I still think a guy like Chris Weidman might be a good potential matchup in the foreseeing months.
Yeah, and then let's shoot it over if Gastelum wins, because this is where it gets really interesting, and I want to get your opinion on this, because if Gastelum wins, he sits at 9. So you got Darren Till at 4, who he already lost to, Marvin Vettori at 5, who beat Jack Hermansson, who sits at 6, who beat Gastelum, and then you have Derek Brunson at 7, Uriah Hall at 8. Where do you think Gastelum goes from this?
God, that's tough. I really like that Marvin Vettori guy. I forgot he just whooped Hermansson's ass not too long ago.
Yeah.
I saw that fight, and I think he gets the shot next. But if Gastelum wins this, man, that's tough. Maybe a Till rematch, but I don't see anyone that's like a clear-cut favorite for him to be matched up with, unless he wants another title shot. which he's already had one. So if he wins this in dominant fashion, I don't think that's too far fetched from Dana White to, give him that opportunity again.
Yeah, it's just such a weird division too, because you got Adesanya in 2 weeks fighting Jan Blachowicz for the light heavyweight title, and then you kind of got a tie up at the top. Whitaker and Costa are going to fight in April, I believe. And then you got Jared Cannonier at 3. And then you got the Darren Till, Marvin Vettori, Hermanson controlling 4, 5, and 6. And you got Gastelum, who's already lost to Till. Vettori's beat someone who beat Hermanson, who leg locked him in the first. I think the only thing I could say is maybe you give him the Hermanson rematch, only because I just say it just because he got that leg lock immediately. So we didn't really get to see Gastelum in that Darren Till fight. That was not that good of a fight, if I remember correctly. They basically just stood flat-footed at each other and just jabbed the fuck out of each other. So, but I don't know, who would you prefer, that, or would you would want to see him against Vettori?
After Vettori gets his damn title shot, I don't think he needs to prove to anyone else again after beating Hermanson like that. But if Dana White wants to, play the hold game and keep him off his grill for a minute, then whoever wins that title fight upcoming with, who'd you say, Adesanya and Blachowicz, yeah. Then depending, how that goes, you could throw him in with Vettori, but I don't see Gastelum winning that fight. I think Vittori's entering his prime right now, and he's like maybe 24, 25 years old. He's the guy in the division right now. I don't think anybody wants to fight. He's just getting better and better.
Could you see maybe Dana White making Gastelum sort of that gatekeeper at around 9 or 10, who has to keep fighting these up and comers like Ian Finich, the 15 guy? So say he beats Ian drops out of the ranking. Could you see potentially whoever gets the next 15th number fighting Gastelum, and Gastelum basically holding the line between outside top 10, inside top 10?
He could, and I think that proves to Dana that's kind of reminds me of like a Damian Maia guy in the welterweight division, someone who's kind of on that tier between 8 and 10. And it's not like Dana hasn't given Gastelum a shot. He had the title shot, and then he lost his next 2 after. No shot to him, because these are guys who are in the top 5 and are in the upper echelon of the division. So that's all up to Gastelum, but he may not like that decision and want out. But I guess we're gonna see. But if he wins with dominant performance on this, Dana might have to give him another shot. But if it's some close bullshit decision, I think, yeah, he stays as the gatekeeper of the middleweight division.
Yeah. All right. And it's time, ladies. We have the co-main event. In the women's flyweight division, we have number 10, Macy, the future Barber, taking on 15, Alexa Grasso. Macy Barber is the underdog at plus 110. Alexa Grasso, the favorite, at minus 137. Macy Barber, 8-1. Alexa Grasso, 12-3.
Okay, what was it? Last fight with Macy Barber I saw was against Roxanne Modafferi. That was January of last year. But when she lost in the unanimous decision, I think she tweaked her knee out pretty bad halfway through the fight. So I think she might have been spending the most, like, upwards half of this year probably rehabilitating that. But prior to that, she's got, she won the last 4 out of 5 before that by KO, TKO. But these are some names I've heard of: Aldrich before, Robertson, who I think's earlier on the card. But
yeah,
then I look over to who Alexa Grasso has been fighting. Carla Esparza, Tatiana Suarez, Randa Marcos, Carolina Kovalkiewicz got a win over her. This is tough, but I'm taking Grasso in this fight.
All right. So, yeah, alluding back to what he said about that knee injury, it was interesting, too, because, yeah, it was a loss to Modafferi. She did tweak her knee, and then she kind of went out to the media and basically said that the knee was the reason she lost. So she kind of made an excuse, but let's just get into these stats. So we got Macy Barber, 8.18 significant strikes landed versus 7.85 significant strikes absorbed. Alexa Grasso, 5.25 significant strikes landed, 3.61 significant strikes absorbed. This, to me, is a boxing match in the UFC. What are your thoughts on those? Those are just incredible, like, stats.
Yeah, no, that's nothing short of fireworks, and the amount of volume with, these flyweights is going to be absolutely exciting. I think Macy, at being 22 years old, she probably hasn't grown into that. She's still in that brawler mental state of mind, if you know what I'm saying. Like, she's dishing out a fuck ton at 8 point whatever, but absorbing that amount in the sevens as a 22-year-old, like that's going to hurt the longevity of your career. And I think Alexa Grasso, although it's going to be fireworks, I think she's going to be the one to stay a bit more poised in the pocket and, kind of keep her cool if things get out of hand in that regard.
Yeah, I mean, both these ladies throw punches and accept punches. The only question for you that I found interesting that I was looking into is Alexa Grasso. She's fought at the strawweight division, the one below that. So she's coming up in weight. The question is, do you think she can hang with Macy Barber coming from a smaller division?
I do, and maybe her natural weight. Maybe she's realizing she won't have to cut as much if she cuts anything at all. These girls, they all look like toothpicks to me, and I don't know what their natural weight is. But if she's moving up, that might be a more natural weight for her. She might have more dynamite in her hands, and when you add that more natural weight, you're not cutting as much. It also makes your chin stronger if you think about it. A good example of that is how Holloway, who came from featherweight to lightweight, and you thought he could take a punch at featherweight. Look at him at lightweight and what he got hit with that Calvin Kattar fight prior to that. Dropped so many bombs on him, and he just kept walking forward. So if this is her first fight at a new weight class, I think it gives her an advantage. Her cardio is going to be better too without cutting that much weight. Although girls at this size, they never really seem to run out of energy anyways. I think it's going to be a beneficial factor for her.
Yeah, this is a really close fight, in my opinion. I think the UFC did an excellent job in matchmaking. Like I said before, this is going to be a boxing match. Do not expect to see this go to the ground. I think Macy Barber and Alexa Grasso are going to get in that boxing stance that you saw McGregor get in last week or 2 weeks ago against Dustin Poirier. I didn't really look into it. I don't know who has the better kicks, but I think that could potentially be a factor in this. I'm going to lean towards Alexa Grasso as well with Larochelle. I think Macy Barber coming off that loss to Maverick, who's ranked number 9 in the flyweight. So she's going down against Alexa Grasso, but I just think she is a reckless fighter. I mean, if you're absorbing 7.8 significant strikes a minute, that's absurd. And you're fighting a girl who lands 5.25 significant strikes. They both throw heavy, they both land heavy, but I think Alexa Grasso just gets this done, like you said, because of just her ability maybe to control those emotions and not, do that thing the young fighters do where they basically just run at you and throw.
Yeah, that reckless abandonment type of style never seems to pan out well for these up and comers, especially how talented the competitors in the sport are today.
All right. Now is the moment we've all been waiting for. I'm really excited to get into this one. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the main event. The welterweight title of the UFC is on the line. We got the champion Kamaru Usman minus 278 versus Gilbert Durinho Burns plus 220. Usman 17-1, Burns 19-3.
God, dude. I've been thinking about this all day, but I'm hitting Burns on this, and I'll give you a few reasons. Since seeing his first fight, which I saw on TV, but then I did some more research against Damian Maia, who we all know is the elite of the elite in jiu-jitsu. But Evan, you probably have this more written down well than I do. Gilbert Burns might be the next Damian Maia with absolute TNT in his fists.
Yeah. Oh my God. So yeah, let's just talk about that. So Gilbert Burns started off in jiu-jitsu. He's a world-class Brazilian jiu-jitsu practitioner. I think he's won a world title, just like that Ronan, or the guy that we said was
the black belt hunter.
Yeah, the black belt hunter. And then he transitioned to striking, and he is a tank when it comes to striking. He knocks out Damian Maia. and then he runs over Tyron Woodley, like runs over the former champ in Tyron Woodley. The interesting thing too that we have to look at is these two are former teammates, and teammates being like completely teammates. So they strike together, they grapple together. I've been trying to dig because we know one of them knows who got the better of who in practice. And I was listening to Ariel Helwani, and he said that apparently Burns would get the upper hand. And like you, I'm going with Burns on this one. I am so high on Burns. Now, this is no knock on Kamaru Usman. Let's just get that straight. Besides George St. Pierre, Kamaru Usman's probably the second greatest welterweight champion the UFC has ever had.
Yeah, and I like how you brought up they were ex-teammates. And the only comparison I can think of most recently that happened was back when Rashad Evans and John Jones used to be teammates out at Greg Jackson's. And Rashad was the champion at the time. And Jones knew he was getting better and he was soon to, be deserved a title shot. But they had trained together. And turns out Jones was better, even though he didn't get the recognition, in the camp when they were sparring against each other. I feel like down deep, he knew he was younger, he was more hungry, and he comes out and completely dominates Rashad Evans. And so I can kind of see the same thing kind of happening with Gilbert Burns. He knows Usman. It's not like walking. He knows that bullshit that he does, not the most exciting fighter. Will put you up against the fence, stomp your toes, all that dirty shit. But I think Burns is not going to get walked through like that.
Yeah, I'm really glad you brought that up. So one stat that sticks out is Usman has 100% takedown defense. He's never been taken down in his career. And like you said, Usman is always walking forward. If you go back to that Colby Covington fight, which I highly recommend to watch because it's one of the greatest fights, Usman, the reason he beat Colby is Colby's known as a pace fighter. He's not going to throw power shots, but he's going to keep walking at you. Usman didn't let him do that. Usman walked him down. Usman loves walking people down. Like you said, he's going to walk you to the cage, and once he gets you on the cage, he's going to do all the dirty wrestling tricks. Only problem is he's now going to be fighting Gilbert Burns, who is a absolute stud on the ground. So I don't think, that's what I wanted to ask you. Where do you see this fight taking place? Is this fight going to be stand up? Is this fight going to be on the ground? Is it going to be a mix of both?
I think it's going to be a mix of both. I think Usman trying to walk Burns down, he may get that pressure at first, but Burns, you've seen it in his hands. He did. And the way I see it, look at the way Burns beat Woodley compared to the way Usman beat Woodley. I mean, strikes to just grapple to clinch to like shoulder thrugs and elbows and that kind of thing. It was so much more dominant the way Burns took over that fight. And at some points when Woodley was creating the pressure, the way Burns uses his feints to set up those overhands, and he's lightning quick for being a guy that fucking size. That's what impressed me the most. And so I think it might be a mix of both. I don't think Usman indulges for the takedown for obvious reasons, unless he's trying to prove a point. But if I see Burns landing, one of those quick overhands, maybe as a counter or something, and it stumbles Usman, best believe Burns will try to get this onto the ground and, do what he does best.
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be a really good fight, but I just lean towards Burns, and I'm really interested to see how this fight plays out because we all know what both these guys want to do. It's basically the same. Both these guys want to walk you down. The only difference is Usman, or I guess Burns is going to throw a damn power shot and he's going to knock you out if he lands. And then like you said, against Tyron Woodley, it was domination. Like his takedowns, I wouldn't even consider takedowns. They were bull rushes. Like he full on took Tyron Woodley the whole 20-foot back to the fence and then sat his ass down and ground and pounded him. And there are also a lot of people are saying Burns did get the upper hand in the upper hand in training. And I'm so glad you brought up the John Jones Rashad Evans fight because that is what everyone compares it to. They used to train together, and Rashad knew that John Jones would get the better of him, still took the fight. John Jones won. The other example I heard was DC Daniel Cormier said he was teammates with Cain Velasquez. Now, they never fought, but he has openly said he knew Kane could beat him. And if Kane was ever to get that shot at the title against DC said Kane would have beat me. He was on another level. And people have said Burns has usually gotten the better of Usman when they would practice together. Now, I do want to bring this up, which I find really interesting. I want to get your thoughts. Burns is coach. So Usman left the team, right? Left it. I don't know how long ago, but he left it. Burns' coach, who also coached Usman, said he will not be in the corner of Burns because he respects Kamaru too much. So Burns is missing his head coach.
Yeah, and even though Usman left, that's kind of the same boat with that Evans Jones deal. I think Greg Jackson either didn't sit on either side, or their boxing coach Freddie Roach might have been on one of them. But I think that's a smart decision for a head coach to pick sides on two guys. He brought Usman to where he is today, if you think about it, and he's doing the same thing with Burns. So he's showing some class in that regard. And with the whole DC and Kane thing, DC admitted Kane was better, even if they were to fight. Usman's damn ego would never let him say, even if it's true that Burns has gotten the better of him in those exchanges. Just the way he talked with Colby and all that bullshit. He's way too overconfident for my liking. I don't think missing that head coach specifically is going to affect Burns that much, seeing as they've trained together for so long. He's already seen the ins and outs of a lot of Usman's game. And even though Usman's developed into the fighter that he is right now, he's done a lot of the same things that he had, when he was on the Ultimate Fighter. He's just got bigger, stronger, faster, and he's able to impose his will more. He has evolved his game as much as I can say that for other fighters who have become successful through same camps.
Yeah, so just some fun facts to give you about this fight. Usman currently is tied for the longest win streak with George St. Pierre in the welterweight division, so he would break that record if he won. And then Gilbert Burns would become the first Brazilian-born welterweight champion. Brazilians have held every other belt except the welterweight, so there is that on the line. So we're both going with Burns in this one. I think just the upset, the money is there. I think the line's way too big. I think this is going to be a much closer fight than Vegas thinks. I mean, minus 278, that's almost a 3-1 favorite. I mean, if you're a 3-1 favorite, that's our black belt hunter type shit. Like, you better come out and bang. You're not going to do that, so go over Burns. Next question is, it's time to play matchmaker in this division. And wow, Larochelle, this division is clogged. So we got Usman and then Burns at 1. We got Colby Covington at 2, Leon Edwards at 4, or Leon Edwards at 3, Jorge Masvidal at 4, Stephen Thompson at 5. So let's say Usman wins. Usman retains the title. So that drops Gilbert out. And then you got Colby, who's supposed to fight Masvidal later. And you got Leon, who's going to fight Hamzat. My question is, if Hamzat beats Leon at 3, do you give Hamzat that title shot?
Chimaev?
Yeah.
Yes. The way that man has steamrolled through everyone, whether it be top 10, top 15, it doesn't matter. He says, even in all his interviews, he's a man of few words, but he's going to smash you. And what else has he shown except he's done that to everyone the way he said it? I don't see Leon Edwards even in that fight being any different. He's been extremely dominant and reminds me of a Khabib of the welterweight division. I think Chimaev might get, that title shot next, depending on how this goes.
Yeah, and then would you say then who the winner of the Leon Edwards Hamzat fight should be next in line for the title, even if Burns, or I guess let's start with that. If Burns win, I'm guessing your answer, but I'm just going to ask it for the people because they probably don't think like us. If Burns wins, what do you do with Usman?
Give him an immediate rematch. Yeah, the amount of title defenses he's had already, I think solidifies that. As much as I dislike the guy, history will repeat itself, and he'd get a rematch. I would see that. Maybe in Brazil, if things go back to normal, that'd be pretty sweet.
That would be awesome. All right, so then I guess let's say because the question that I have is they're trying to make the Colby Jorge fight. I feel like they're kind of, or the Leon Edwards Hamzat, because one of those guys is going to be the odd man out. I assume the winner of the Covington Masvidal or the winner of the Edwards Chimaev fight gets the next title shot unless Burns wins and you give Usman the immediate rematch. Is that where your head's at?
Yeah, I think if Usman wins, I forgot about that Colby Masvidal fight. What strikes me, if Masvidal wins that, right? When he fought Usman the first time, I believe it was on like 6 days notice.
Yeah, you're
right?
correct.
It was extremely short time. He had no sort of camp. He was pretty much off the couch. And he still held his own kind of. And I think, didn't it go to a decision?
Yeah, he lasted all 5 rounds. It was just a dominant victory from Usman.
Yeah, if I forgot about that. If Masvidal wins, I think he gets that rematch first against Usman. But if he loses and Colby wins, and it's kind of a wishy-washy decision, how I see that might be going. And then if Chimaev destroys Leon Edwards, you might give the loser between Colby and Jorge to Chimaev, and I think the winner, regardless, Jorge for sure. But if Colby wins by decision, let's say Chimaev destroys Leon Edwards, I could see Dana going either way. I'd rather see Chimaev instead of a Colby rematch.
Yeah,
if that's how it turns out.
I'm so high on Hamzat. I think everyone is, and it'll be interesting if he beats, because he's at 15 right now. Hamzat is, and he's fighting the number 3.
Yeah.
If he wins, holy shit, he's jumping. And Stephen Thompson, Wonder Boy, who sits at 5, has already said it's bullshit. That Hamzat's gonna skip everyone. So yeah, let's stay with the welterweight division for one more thing. Wonder Boy Thompson's at 5, came off that win, said he wants a top 5 opponent, but I just read all those off to you. Where do you like Wonder Boy Thompson? Michael Chiesa sits at 6, Woodley at 7, and then Damian Maia at 8.
Not Woodley, because I think he's way past his prime, and even if Thompson won that fight, I don't think it'd be showing Dana much.
No.
Who's the other guy you mentioned? Not Maia, but
Michael Chiesa,
who just came off a win. Who'd he beat?
Neil Magny.
Yeah, I like Chiesa versus Wonder Boy in that. That's a real striker grappler type of matchup. But
yeah,
and I'm not even. It's what surprised me the most in that fight was how Chiesa. I thought he was just going to get in his face, get that grapple body lock, take him down. He was picking and choosing his strikes. Really, it's a guy like Magny who has solidified himself as a solid striker, and we're winning those exchanges. And then eventually got it to the ground and did what he does best. I think that's really intriguing with Wonder Boy, how good he is at keeping that range. But Chiesa seems to always find a way to pass by that and get in and do what he does best with the body locks and putting you on your back, making you uncomfortable, ground and pounding you until the submission's there.
Yeah, I think that would be a good fight to just give the number 5. The only question though is, would Wonder Boy accept that? Because Chiesa's at 6, he's at 5, and he's already said he wants to fight someone above him. So that'll be interesting. The only thing I could think of that might interest you, because I know Dana thinks about the money. So what would your thoughts be if Usman loses this and you make the rematch between Usman Covington for to fight Burns for the title? Would you do that if you were Dana?
Yeah. I don't think. Shoot, I didn't even think about that, but that makes sense.
Yeah, I didn't think about that either. That popped into my head.
The way fucking Usman's been winning his fights, if I'm Dana, I'm not impressed. He doesn't have a huge fan base, nor I doubt those pay-per-view hits are as big as even some of the women title fights. How boring of a fighter he is. If Dana wants to prove a point, then yeah, send him against Covington again. Fuck, give Burns a break if he needs it. But if not, Burns, the type of athlete he is, he'll be right. If the fight goes well for him, he'll be ready to step right back in. But
yeah,
and then what you said earlier about Wonder Boy bitching and complaining about Chimaev jumping all those spots. Well, you step in, motherfucker, and try to go fight Chimaev. You would get run through just as bad. He's getting what he deserves. And Wonder Boy, who's this nice polished shirt tucker, who I've grown less of a fan of him. I think he needs to keep his mouth shut, because Nah, Chimenev's not
He's
the guy
also
that he wants.
38. Steven Thompson is old. Like, that's how old Tyron Woodley is.
How old's Chimenev? 24 or something?
Yeah, like 24, 25.
Yeah, he does not want that problem. So he needs to go back to commentating and retire if he's going to keep talking that way.
Yeah, I think what could work out. So this is, again, all dependent. If Burns wins, I think then the money fight is you put Usman Covington together, and then you have Leon Edwards and Hamzat coming up. And then I guess you could match up Masvidal and Thompson just because that would make Wonder Boy happy, I guess, because Masvidal's 4. I don't know. But if Usman wins, they're going to probably go with the Covington Masvidal fight and then the Edwards Chimaev fight. So out of those two fights, which one of those do they go with to fight Usman for the belt? Or do they give Burns an immediate rematch?
That all depends how the fight goes, how each of those fight go. If it's a split decision, something like that with Burns, and Burns lands his damn shots, and it's a war, which I doubt that's going to happen because Usman's never one to be in a lot of wars. I don't see it going down that way. Yeah, but if it's a close split decision type fight, you give Burns the immediate rematch. If, like I was saying earlier, if Masvidal comes in and beats the brakes off of Colby, then he gets it. If Colby wins one of those wishy-washy split decision fights, that's a who knows. But if Chimenev completely derails Leon Edwards, who's at 3, it could go any which way. It's all going to depend on how these upcoming fights go and how they're played out,
Yeah, I completely agree. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed our UFC 258 coverage, but let's not forget one thing. We are going to be doing this, I think, for the remainder of the pay-per-views, and March 6th is UFC 259. That's Blachowicz versus Adesanya for the light heavyweight title. Adesanya is looking to become a 2-time weight division. We also on that card, Larochelle, don't wet your pants when I tell you this, but we have also Amanda Nunes, Megan Anderson fighting for the women's featherweight title. We also have Peter Yan and Aljamain Sterling fighting for the bantamweight title. We have 3 title fights on that card, and I am very excited to bring you those.
Oh yeah, we're gonna have to watch those for sure, and we're gonna have some good stuff for the upcoming weeks.
Yeah, we got that, and then let's talk about that run we're gonna make. We have that, and then the week after that we have the Chimaev Edwards fight, and then the week after that we have the Stipe Francis title fight. So, ladies and gentlemen, keep your pants on because Larochelle and I are going to be bringing you some excellent coverage soon. I hope y'all enjoyed. Larochelle, anything you want to add?
Tune the fuck in. I know y'all's going to spend some money on these fights, so pay attention. You got the best coverage right here.